Hey guys, this is Eric Vasquez here with a brand new tutorial for you today from designcuts.com. Now in this lesson we'll be designing a cold brew packaging mockup in Photoshop. To do this we'll be working with a nice variety of design elements from the Deluxe Textures and Patterns bundle, courtesy of artists such as Antipixel, Blue Line Design, MiksKS, and much more. Along with these amazing high quality assets, we also have a few elements from TVartworks Coffee Scene Creator that will really help to showcase our packaging design in a professional and eye-catching way. If you're all ready to get started, then fire up Photoshop and let's get brewing. Now we're going to start off by just creating a new document, and let's go ahead and give our document here a name. I'm just going to go ahead and call this Cold Brew Packaging Design, just with some hyphens in between. And let's go ahead and make it 5 inches wide by 6 inches tall. Or actually, I'm going to change that to 6 inches wide by 7 inches tall. Now, we want to go ahead and set the resolution to 300 pixels per inch. Color mode can be RGB for now because we're just worrying about the mockup itself, not necessarily a print-ready label. And for the background contents, we can just leave it set to white. Now, once you've gone ahead and set those parameters up, let's go ahead and click on Create in the lower right-hand corner. Now to get started, I'm going to begin by going to the File menu and choosing Open. And I want to first navigate to some of the mockup elements. We're going to start this one by creating our scene first. So we're going to go into the resources and we want to find the Colossal Mockup template from TVartworks here, and we're going to open the bonus mockup 1 BG file. Now once you've done that, let's go ahead and just move the tab over here, move the tab for our project to that side, and all I'm going to do is hold the Shift key and click on the top folder and then on the bottom folder, and then click, hold Shift, and drag these folders into our document over here. Now you can go ahead and close that bonus mockup background file, and now let's just get to work over here in our main document. The first thing I'm going to do is just delete that film effect layer. And now let me select some of these other folders in here, and I'm just going to rename them really quickly just to make them all caps so it's a little bit easier to see. Now what I'm going to do first is select the Effect folder and just drop the opacity down from 45% to 10%. And I'm also then going to select the Sun folder here, and I want to make the opacity for that layer from 50% up to 65%. Okay, so we're just changing a couple of things really quick. Go ahead and click on this BG folder to expand the contents and reveal this one layer inside. Now what we're going to do is come up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded, and we're going to go ahead and import our first wood texture from Made by Vadim. Alright, so come back to the freebies, the resources, go into the Made by Vadim folder here and select the wooden texture inside. Alright, it's a TIFF file, so it's a high quality texture. And all we're going to do here is expand this and scale it up so that it fills out the canvas. So select any of the 4 corners and click and drag outwards while holding Alt, Option, and Shift on the keyboard, and then just go ahead and press Enter or Return to apply the changes. Now from here you can go ahead and just delete the background layer and delete that solid color layer on the bottom, because this wooden plank texture will serve as our new background. Now come down here to the adjustment layer icon and click on the Hue Saturation Adjustment layer. And then let's go ahead and just move the saturation up to about 25 or so. Alright, so I'm just moving that up a little bit here. Slide that down so you can see the properties. And then I'm just going to press F so that I can change my screen mode here. Come back up to File and choose Place Embedded once again. Come back into this folder here. And now we're going to go into this folder and select the Cheetah 3 Gold Detail PNG file. Now choose Place to import this as a smart object. And I'm just going to rotate this a bit counterclockwise. I'm just clicking and dragging over any of the 4 corners of the bounding box. And then once I've done that, I will once again hold Alt, Option, and Shift and drag outwards to scale it up. All right, now I'm just going to move this around a little bit, experiment with the placement, and go ahead and maybe just bring that back a little bit more so that the cheetah is about upright. And we can also maybe make it a little bit bigger here. Something like that looks pretty good. Alright, tap it down a few times, get it right where you want it, somewhere in the middle, and then come over here to the Layers panel. Let's just pop that out, and we're going to drop the fill all the way down to 0. So you'll notice that the cheetah disappears. We can no longer see anything on this layer. but that's okay because we're going to now double click on the layer, apply some blending modes and layer styles that will once again reveal this and bring it back. So the first thing I want to do in here is go to the main blending options and change the blend mode to multiply, and then come down here to where it says underlying layer on this very bottom slider, and I need to separate these two little sliders here. You can see there's a very thin line in between these two dividers, and if I just try to move it around, it's moving around together. But if I hold Alt Option on the keyboard and then click and drag it, I can manipulate these two independently of one another. So I'm going to move the right slider over here until it's set to around 138. Okay, and this is where the magic happens. Now we want to come over here and check off Color Overlay, change the blend mode of this layer to multiply, and now for the fill color, let's go ahead and enter the hex value 2D0707, which is this nice kind of deep red color. Then go ahead and click OK. Click OK once again, and now you can see that we have our cheetah back here. So I just want to go ahead and maybe now reduce the normal opacity just a little bit so that it's just not quite as intense. Maybe somewhere around 80 to 85% looks pretty good, just so that you can get a little bit more of that wood texture showing through in the dark areas here of the illustration. Okay, now I'm just going to move this layer down a bit so that it's below the effect and the sun folders, and now you can see it a little bit better. Now go ahead and create a new layer, zoom out a bit, and press G on the keyboard to get your gradient tool. Now if by some chance it selects your paint bucket tool, just come over here and click and hold on that tool and then select the gradient tool from there. Conversely, you can also press G and the Shift key to kind of toggle through the other tool options available. Now once you've done that, look at the top here, the top toolbar. We want to make sure that we have a radial gradient selected and that we check off this reverse box up here. Now at the moment I have my default colors set to black and white, as you can see down here in the toolbar. So I'm going to press X just to toggle those two colors so that black is in the foreground. Now that I've done that, you can see that it changes the appearance of this gradient up top. Right? So I want the dark color. So I'm going to click on this and you guys can see right here that we have a black fill color and over here it's transparent. So that's what we're looking for. Alright, so I'm going to zoom out a bit and now I'm just going to click and drag from the center outwards to create this nice kind of vignette effect. Alright, and I'm going to double click the layer 21 text over here, call this layer vignette, double click inside, press Command C, then Command G to put it into a folder, double click the group 1 text and press Command Control V to paste that name, and we now have a vignette in here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and change the blending mode of that layer to multiply, and that will help us to keep the focus on the center of our design. Alright, so now let's go back to the File menu and choose Place Embedded once again, and we can begin importing a few more elements from our mockup. So come back here to the TVartworks folder, and now I'm going to select the Coffee Dust 1 PSD file and choose Place. Okay, and now just click and hold Alt, Option, and Shift and drag outwards to scale it up until it completely covers the canvas here. Alright, come back up to File, choose Place Embedded. This time we want to grab Coffee Dust 2, and we're going to do the same thing. Click and hold Alt, Option, and Shift and just drag outwards to scale it up. Okay, so that we can place that layer on top. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing and bring in our beans as well. So I'm going to start by grabbing the Circle Beans PSD, choose Place, and I'm going to move it to the top left of the design here, and then click on the lower right hand corner and drag outwards while holding Alt, Option, and Shift. And I just want to place it somewhere about here, maybe rotate it a little bit, and then go ahead and just press Enter on the keyboard. Now I'm going to do the same thing one more time, and this time I'll grab the Scattered Beans PSD, just so we can add some more beans to the other side. Alright, let's scale these up a bit as well, just so they're roughly the same size as our other beans. Okay, and now I'm just going to maybe place this somewhere over here on the lower right portion of the design. Alright, somewhere about there looks pretty good. And now we have some coffee elements in here. So I'm going to select the scattered beans, hold the Shift key, and select the Coffee Dust 1 Smart Object layer, and then press Command Control plus G on the keyboard to put it into a new folder. Double click the Group 1 text and call this folder, let's name it BG Coffee. Okay, so now I'm going to select this BG Coffee folder and put it above the vignette, just to brighten that up a bit because we're going to want to have a little more control over these things separately. So now that I've done that, select the BG Coffee folder, hold the Alt Option key and click on the adjustment layer icon, and now choose a Curves adjustment layer. Be sure to check off this box here that says Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, and then click OK. Now you'll see right away that I have this small arrow here indicating the clipping mask, and over in my properties I can now adjust this so that it will only affect the folder and the contents that are inside. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down until the input is set to about 153, or I can just manually type in 153. And let's go ahead and then change the output to 113. Okay, so you can see we've brought some contrast in here, making the coffee dust and the beans all darker. All right, I'm going to bring the properties back over here. And now we can go ahead and bring in some more elements here. Come up to the File menu and choose Open. And now let's go ahead and bring in the Bottle 1 PSD. Alright, just like we did earlier on, I'm going to press F to change my view here so that I can see my two side-by-side elements. And I'm going to select this Bottle 1 folder. Maybe just double-click on it and just rename it Bottle. And then just click, hold the Shift key, and drag it over into your working document. Now I can close that file, press F to get change my screen mode up a little bit. And now we have our bottle in the mockup. So once we're in here, we just want to change a few of these parameters here. I'm going to start by clicking this arrow here on the bottle folder to expand the contents and reveal what's inside. And you should see a folder here just called Object. So in there's a shadow layer, which we're going to select and then press Command-Control+J to duplicate it, because I want to intensify that shadow effect. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to hold the Alt Option key. Make sure that you have this Z1 layer selected in the Object folder, and then click on the adjustment layer icon and come down here and choose black and white. Once again, check off the box to use previous layer to create clipping mask. And now let's go ahead and change the blending mode of that layer to soft light. Okay, and that's going to add some contrast to the glass of the bottle. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can collapse that folder, and we're going to pay attention to the number 2 folder in here. And if you click on this arrow to expand the contents, you'll see that there's a layer right at the top here that says Your Artwork. Double click on Thumbnail. So let's go ahead and do just that. We're going to double click on that thumbnail, and I'm just going to ignore that because we don't really need any of these fonts for this. And I'm just going to create a new layer at the very top and press Alt Option and Delete on the keyboard to fill it with solid black. And now I can just select that layer, select the very bottom layer, and press Command-Control+E just to merge it all together so that we have a nice clean canvas to work with here. So this is where we're going to be designing our actual label now that we have the scene created for our packaging to live in. So let's begin by coming up to the File menu and choosing Place Embedded. And I'm going to come back here to the Freebies folder. And let's see, I want to import some paper textures. So I'm going to come in here into the MiksKS subfolder. And the one I'm going to select first is Paper Texture 28. So select that and then choose Place. And once that smart object opens up in Photoshop, I'm just going to expand it here. I'm going to scale it up by clicking and dragging outwards while holding Alt Option and Shift. Hold the Control key and then click on the image and choose Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now I can continue to scale it up until it fills the space entirely. Okay, and if you want to, play around with the position a little bit more, maybe you want to click and then flip it vertically too, just to change it up a bit. And then once you're happy with the size and placement, go ahead and press Return on the keyboard. Now from here what I want to do is just select that paper texture and then press Command-Control-I to invert it. Okay, and then we can just go ahead and delete that black layer on the bottom. Now come back up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded once again. Come back one folder. And now we want to go into this Antipixel folder and select the Halftone Stains 7 PNG file and then choose Place. And we're going to do the same thing here where we just kind of click and drag outwards to fill the canvas while holding Alt Option and Shift to make sure that we constrain the proportions, and then press Return to apply the transformation. Now we'll come back up again, choose Place Embedded, and now we're going to import a nice geometric pattern. Alright, so we'll come into here, choose Minimal Pattern 12, and then choose Place, and I'm going to move this to the upper left hand corner, and it should kind of snap into place. Now I'm just going to drag outwards from the bottom right corner here while holding Shift to scale it up a little bit, and then press return. Now, in order to create a seamless pattern all over, I don't want to just scale this whole thing up because we're only going to have, maybe 3 or 4 lines going across. Instead, what I want to do is kind of repeat these. So I'm going to select the layer and press Command-Control-J, then click, hold the Shift key, and slide it over until it snaps into place. Press Command-Control+J again, click, hold the Shift key, and slide it over. All right, just so we have 3 in a row. Now I'll select the top layer, hold the Shift key, and select the third copy of the pattern. Press Command-Control-T to do a free transform, and then click and drag outwards while holding Shift until it spans all the way across. Now you can see in here we have a little thin line between the second and third pattern, so I just want to go ahead and fix that really quick. Okay, and now I'll select these top 3 and press Command-Control-E to merge them together. Now press Command-Control-J to duplicate that whole row. Click, hold the Shift key, and slide it down. Okay, now we can do that again. Press Command-Control-J, click, hold the Shift key, and drag it down. And we're going to do this a 4th time just to create that seamless pattern that we're going for. All right, now once you've done that, select the top copy, hold the Shift key, and select the bottom copy of your patterns. And once again, press Command-Control+E on the keyboard, and that's going to merge them all into one single layer. Now that we have our geometric pattern on one layer, let's go ahead and press Command-Control+U to bring up our hue saturation panel. And we're just going to slide the saturation all the way to the left so that it's set to -100. Click OK, and then press Command-Control-L on the keyboard to bring up our levels adjustment. And I'm just moving this gray slider in all the way here towards the right. I'm going to take the light slider and move it in towards the left so that we can try to get a black and white version of our pattern, something like that. We want a really high contrast black and white pattern. All right, so something like that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and click OK, and we're going to change the blend mode of this layer from normal to overlay. All right, so that's going to reveal our textures through our pattern on top. Now let's come back down to the adjustment layer icon and choose solid color. And for the hex value here, I'm just going to enter 1A, 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 which is this dark gray color, and then we're going to change the blend mode of that layer to linear burn. Okay, so that we can still see some of our texture. Now I'll come back up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded, and we're going to go into the Blue Line Design subfolder here and select our cheetah fur texture, and then choose Place. Okay, I'm going to scale it up by dragging outwards while holding Alt, Option, and Shift. Then press Return to apply the changes, and change the blend mode of this layer from normal to soft light. Now hold the Alt Option key and click on the adjustment layer icon and choose Levels. Check off the box to use previous layer to create a clipping mask. And I'm just going to move this slider in, the gray slider in towards the center until it's set to about 50. All right, just to get some more contrast there out of the fur. And let's go ahead and move the white slider in towards the center until it's set to around maybe 210 or 211. Okay, now select the Fur Texture Smart Object again, click on the adjustment layer icon, and now add a curves adjustment layer. And for this one, I'm just going to manually type in, well, first add a point in the center, and then manually type in an input of 145, and let's change the output to 117. Now select the Levels adjustment layer on top, and you'll notice that both of these layers are clipped to the fur texture, so neither of these adjustments are affecting any of the layers below that. But now what we want to do is make sure that we have our very top layer selected, come back down to the adjustment layer icon, this time without holding Alt, Option, and Shift, and we're going to add a black and white adjustment layer. So this one is going to affect everything below. We just want to make sure that we have a black and white adjustment layer on the very top. Now select that adjustment layer, hold the Shift key, and select the Paper Texture 28 Smart Object all the way on the bottom. Press Command-Control-G to put it into a group folder, double-click the Group 1 text, and rename this folder Background. Now come back up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded, and we're going to now bring in another copy of the cheetah illustration right in here, okay, and choose Place, because I want to kind of echo what we did in our scene a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to scale it up, rotate it just like we did before, make it so it's pretty much upright here. Okay, maybe somewhere about there looks good, and then press Return. And now I'm going to double click on the layer to bring up the layer style panel and check off the color overlay option. Change the blend mode from multiply back to normal. And let's go ahead and enter the hex value 9D7B1E, which is this kind of mustardy gold color here, and then click OK. Add a new layer, press T on the keyboard to get your type tool, and then we're going to click somewhere around the middle of the canvas here, and I'm just going to type out the word charge in all caps. Now you can't see the text right now because it's in black, so I'm going to press Command-Control-A to select it, come up to the window menu and choose character to get my character panel. And for this, I'm going to change the typeface, not the actual text, to a font called Loudhailer. And you guys can find the link for this free typeface in the written portion of the tutorial. You can download the font from dafont.com. It's totally free so that you guys can follow along. Now let's just go ahead and use the character panel to change the size of this font to about 725, and we'll turn the tracking setting down to 0. Okay, and I'll change the fill color from black to white so that we can see it. And now I'm going to select my move tool here, just move that to the side, and I want to place this text right in the middle here. Right, somewhere about there looks pretty good. Maybe tap it down a few times. All right, something like that. Now, what I want to do here is come over to my layers panel, and you'll see this small FX icon that we have here, indicating the layer styles that we've applied to the cheetah. Now, a quick tip here is to hold the Alt Option key, click on the FX icon, and then just drag it onto the type layer above to basically just duplicate that layer style onto our text. Now, once we've done that, I'm going to hold the Command key and then click on the text layer, the thumbnail icon of the text layer here, to activate a selection around it. Come up to the Select menu and choose Modify, Expand, and then we'll enter 25 pixels, press Return. And now what I want to do is come up to the Select menu and choose Inverse, or you can press Command-Control plus Shift plus I on the keyboard to invert it. And then select the cheetah layer, come down to the bottom of the Layers palette, and click on the Add Layer Mask icon. And what that's going to do is add a layer mask to the cheetah using the selection from our text. Okay, because we wanted to kind of knock it out so that it's a little bit easier to read. Now press B on the keyboard to get your brush tool. Make sure that you have solid black as your foreground color. And come in here, and I'm just going to tidy up some of these gaps here in the letters. So anywhere that it just looks a little bit strange, I want to just clean it up a little bit to make it easier to read. So I'm not bothered by all of these shapes. Maybe just a few of them there we can get rid of. Those two aren't even so bad, but just to make things a little bit more legible there. Now let's go ahead and create another new layer. Press T on the keyboard again, and I'll come down here, click with my type tool, and I'm going to type out Cold Brew in all caps. Press Command-Control-A to select all. Come back to my character panel, and now I'm going to change the font to any sans serif, black or bold font will do. For this I'll use Avenir Black. And then let's go ahead and just make a few adjustments. I want to change the size to 110 and change the tracking setting to 160. And for now you can leave the fill color set to white. Alright, so I'm just going to select that, move the text over a little bit, just below the charge text. And then I'll go ahead and press U on the keyboard. That's going to give us the rectangle tool. And now I can come up here to where it says stroke, choose none for the stroke color, click on this fill box here, and just change it to solid white. Alright, so now all I have to do is click and drag to create a thin white line, a thin white rectangle, to the left of the cold brew text, and then press Command-Control-J to duplicate it, and then hold the Shift key and the right arrow to move a copy of that line to the opposite side, so we basically have a line on either side of our text. Alright, there we go, something like that looks pretty good. Alright, now let's go ahead and add another new layer. Press T once again, click here on the bottom, and I'll type out the words Keep Refrigerated. Press Command-Control-A to select all. And I'm going to change this to maybe 48 point, and we'll return the tracking down to 0. Okay, and then I'm just going to place this over here in the center. Press Command-Control-J, then Command-Control in the left bracket to move the copy down below. And then just hold the Shift key and tap the down arrow a few times. Press T to get your type tool. Click inside the text box here and press Command-Control-A. And now I'll type out 10.5 FLOZ. Now I haven't been able to figure out why this is happening, but I'm getting some kind of weird effect when I type this in here. So I'm just going to cut this and I'm just going to paste it onto a new layer of its own. So I'm going to duplicate that layer, slide it over to the right while holding the Shift key to make sure that it's in line. Click inside, press Command-Control-A, then Command-Control-V to paste it. Okay, and I actually want this on the other side, so I'm just going to manually tap that over there so that it reads like one line. Okay, and then just nudge it over so that it's centered below the Keep Refrigerated text. Now what I want to do is select the effects icon on the charge text while holding the Control key, and that's going to give me this menu here. Now I can select Copy Layer Style, and now I'll select the text layer just above it, the cold brew text. Hold the Shift key and click on the Keep Refrigerated text, so that you should now have all of your white text and lines selected at the same time. Now hold the Control key again and click on any of these layers and choose Paste Layer Style, and that's going to paste that same gold color on all of these layers. Now there's a little bit of an issue here. As you can see, it's a bit hard to read this cold brew text. So let's go ahead and fix that the same way that we handled our charge text. And we did that by holding the Command-Control key and clicking on the thumbnail icon of the text layer to activate a selection around it. Then coming up to the Select menu and choosing Modify, Expand. This time we'll do maybe 20 pixels. Press Enter, and then make sure that you have the layer mask selected on the Cheeto layer. And then as long as black is your foreground color, you simply have to press Alt-Option-Delete to fill that mask with black. Now let's move on. I'm going to select my top text layer here, add another new layer, grab my type tool and click up top. And this time I'm going to type out hand roasted and finely crafted. Press Command-Control-A to select all the text. And in the character panel here, I'm going to change the typeface from Avenir to this Big Noodle titling font, which is another free one that you guys can download, and you'll find the link for that in the written portion as well. And now press Command-Control-A to select that whole line of text. And I just want to make a few adjustments. I'm going to make this 54 point with a tracking setting of 100. Okay, and then I'll move this over here into the middle of the design. All right, press Command-Control+J to duplicate the layer. Hold Shift and the up arrow to move it up. Press T and click inside a few times just to select the whole line of text. And now let's type out Cambodian coffee. Okay, press Command-Control-A to select all. And now I'll change the size for this line of text to 105, and then maybe change the tracking to about, let's try 240. All right, somewhere about there looks pretty good. And I just want to make sure that these two lines are centered here. All right, so I'm going to select this Cambodian coffee layer, hold Shift and select the hand roasted and finely crafted text layer. Come up to the top toolbar here and check off this icon that says Align Horizontal Centers. Now I'm just going to hold Shift and tap down a few times to move them together. Something like that looks pretty good. And now I'll select the hand roasted text layer, hold the Control key and click on it and choose Paste Layer Style. Alright, now I'm going to press U again to come back to my rectangle shape tool. Click on the fill color here, click on the color picker, and just use the eyedropper to select any of this gold from the background to make sure that we have the same hex value 9D7B1E. Click OK, and now all I need to do is click and draw a rectangle around the Cambodian coffee type. Alright, and that should be just below your text layer. Now I'm going to hold the Command-Control key and click on the thumbnail icon for the text layer above it, poke out the eyeball here to turn off the visibility, select the rectangle shape layer below, come up to the Select menu and choose Inverse, and then add a layer mask. And that's just going to make it so that the text is knocked out of that box. Now I'll select the very top layer here, hold the Shift key and select my cheetah illustration, then press Command-Control-G to put all these layers into a group folder, double-click the Group 1 text and call this layer Gold. Alright, because it houses all of our gold elements. Now let's continue by coming up to the File menu and choosing Place Embedded. Now I'm going to come back into the freebies here, and let's see, this time I want to find my paper textures, and I'll bring in Paper Texture 6 and choose Place. Alright, and I'm going to begin just by rotating it and then scaling it up by holding Alt, Option, and Shift and dragging outwards. Alright, press Return to apply the changes, and then go ahead and change the blend mode of this layer from normal to screen. Come back to the File menu again and choose Place Embedded, and this time we'll open Texture 23 and choose Place. And we're going to do the same thing. We want to rotate the texture, hold Alt, Option, and Shift, and just drag outwards to scale it up, and then press Return, change the blend mode from normal to screen, and now I'll select the top texture, hold Shift and select the texture below, press Command-Control-G once again to put it into a group folder, double-click the Group 1 text, and just call this folder Paper. Now with that folder selected, hold the Alt Option key and click on the adjustment layer icon at the bottom and choose Levels from the list. And be sure to check off this box that says Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, and then go ahead and click OK. Now all I'm going to do here is move the left gray slider in towards the center until it's set to about 22. And you can see that by adding that contrast here, we're getting rid of a lot of those lighter tones in the mid-grays so that it's more just pure black and white. Let's go ahead and select the gold folder, hold the Alt Option key, and click on the adjustment layer icon once again, and this time we'll choose Gradient, check off the box to use previous layer to create clipping mask, and then click OK. Now for this, we want to first change the angle here to 35, and now what we can do is leave the style set to linear and click on the gradient here so that we can edit the gradient. Now once you're inside here, you'll notice a few things. There's two squares. There's basically the bottom square, which controls the color, and the top square above it, which controls the opacity. So as I move these things around, you can kind of see what's happening. I'm moving the color to a location of about 50%, so it's in the middle, but the problem is that the opacity is all the way on the left, so I need to slide that over to 50% as well. Now, here's the thing. I want to change this from black to white, and then I'm going to click along the bottom here to add another square here on the bottom, and I'll do the same thing along the top so that I now have another white fill on the bottom, and the opacity on this side is set to 0. On the opposite side, I'll do the same thing by changing the color from black to white. Alright, and then make sure that the opacity is set to 0. And now what I'm going to do is move all 4 of these outer points in towards the center by about a quarter of the way. So I'm going to move the location to about 75, and on the opposite side I'll move it to 25. Alright, just so that we can tighten up on the center here. Okay, and now you should have something like this. And we'll go ahead and press OK. Press OK again, and now just change the blending mode of this layer from normal to overlay. Okay, now once you've done that, we're pretty much done here with our label design, so press Command-Control-S to save the layer, and then once it's done, Command-Control-W to close out of this window and return to our main document. Now, it'll just take a few moments to update here, but now that we're back in our scene, you guys can see the result. It's looking pretty good, but our label is looking a little bit light, so we just need to make a quick adjustment here. What I'm going to do is hold the Command-Control key and click on the layer thumbnail on the mask on the number 2 folder here. Now you'll see that it activated a selection around the label. So once you've done that, come down to the adjustment layer icon and add a curves adjustment. I'm going to bring the properties panel over here so you guys can get a better look at what's happening here. And I want to change the input to 146 and the output to 110. Alright, so something like that looks good. It gives us a nice little boost there at the end, makes the darks a bit darker and the lighter colors a little bit lighter. Alright, so I can close that properties here and collapse that folder, and we now have our completed cold brew packaging mockup in Photoshop. So we built out this scene using some cool mockup elements from TVartworks. And then once we had our scene set up, we went in, we customized and created this cool label using some of the great elements that you guys will find in the Deluxe Textures and Patterns Bundle, which will again give you access to a huge collection of high quality textures and patterns for all of your design projects. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's tutorial and hopefully picked up some new tips and tricks along the way. As always, we'd love to see what you guys do with these elements and with these techniques in your own work, so be sure to share that with us as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Eric Vasquez, and we'll see you next time.